everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about yogas. In fact, I'm going to make a yoga series and step by step go through a few very important yogas that show up in a chart. Some show up more often than others. And of course, the condition of the yoga has to be analyzed to see whether or not you're going to get any benefits from it. So today, the first one we're going to cover is called AshtaLakshmi yoga. Now, what does that mean exactly? Ashta means 8 and Lakshmi means wealth. How is this yoga seen in a birth chart? Now you have to see the position of both Rahu and Jupiter. Jupiter must be in a Kendra from the lagna, so it could be in the 1st house, it could be in the 4th house, it could be in the 7th house, or it could be in the 10th house. And then Rahu has to be in the 6th house from the lagna. Depending on where Jupiter is situated, whether it's in dignity, whether it's strong, and also whether or not it is conjuncting another planet will determine the effects of the yoga. So first of all, let's talk about how this yoga manifests and exactly what are the 8 types of wealth that it talks about. So the first type of wealth is basically called AshtaLakshmi or Mahalakshmi, which is considered to be the original type of prosperity that this yoga would grant a person. Adi means eternal. So essentially this has to do with your connection to the divine, your knowledge related to higher power and basically higher knowledge. So if you when it talks about the 8 types of wealth, you look at this as one of those 8 wealths. Obviously, depending on your circumstances, where you live, what your values are, more types of wealth will show up in your life than others. So the second type of wealth that it speaks about is Dhan Lakshmi. Dhan essentially means basically money, and it is it can show up in simply a good, very healthy bank balance. You have this as a second type of prosperity or wealth. The third one is called Dhanya Lakshma. Dhanya, the word Dhanya means agriculture if you translate it directly. But in our modern life, essentially what it comes down to is the food that you eat. So for example, you may be very wealthy with respect to how much money you have in your bank account, but on the other hand, perhaps the food that you have access to in your daily life is not so good. So this is also a type of wealth. And then the other one is Gaja Lakshmi. Gaja, what does that mean? Translated directly would be elephant. Gaja is the word for elephant. So this is association, in the scriptures this talks about having association with sovereign or royal powers. So in our modern life, what does that mean? Essentially perhaps connections with the government. It means high status. It means powerful connections amongst your friends and family perhaps. So that's what that translates into our life today. Then we're talking about the 5th type of Lakshmi, which is Santana Lakshmi. Santana essentially means progeny. So what is that? Children. Children can be a source of wealth in a person's life. They can bring a lot of joy and happiness. So that is another type of wealth. The sixth one would be dharya. Dharya is a very important one, I think. Dharya means courage. It means courage to take action. It means courage to stand up for what you believe in. It basically gives a person who has this yoga, it basically gives them the courage to do the right thing as well. It also gives the endurance to face tough times in life, which is, of course, a very important quality to have. And then the seventh type of Lakshmi is Vijay Lakshmi. The word Vijay means victory. So it gives the person the power to have perhaps victory in competitions, over their adversaries, and it is a good, of course, type of prosperity, because it also makes the character stronger. Finally, the last one is also a very, very important one, is called Vidya Lakshmi, and Vidya translates into knowledge. This comes in the form of education, and this, of course, as we know in the day that we live in, is also a very useful type of prosperity to have in one's life. So now, so if you have this yoga in your chart, depending on Jupiter's position and Rahu's position, then it will manifest at a certain time in your life. Now, how do you determine when it manifests? Well, you have to look at the dasha system for this. So if you are going through the Mahadasha or the Antardasha of either Rahu or Jupiter, then you will see signs of this manifesting. Again, it depends on what time in your life you are experiencing this yoga. So for example, if you are having it in your chart and it's quite strong, particularly Jupiter's position is quite strong, and you are, say, in your 20s or 30s, then of course, if you are seeking an education, then it's a very powerful yoga for that. So it will give you good results in that area of life. Again, if you are perhaps looking to have a child, and the yoga manifests in your life at the right time, then of course it gives you the advantage there, because it will manifest into you know, it will give you the good conditions in life to be able to have children, for example. So again, it depends on what time in your life it comes. Very important with any yoga in a chart to see is the condition of the planets. So whether or not a yoga will manifest for you, and how strong will be the manifestation of the yoga. So for example, you may get very, very sort of minimal results or very feeble results, something that you can't really sink your teeth into, something that kind of, you know, or perhaps they're transient, they don't last. So you have to see the condition of Rahu and Jupiter in your chart. For example, if Rahu and Jupiter are both very strong, then you can expect the results to also be equally strong. But on the other hand, with most charts, you see, you know, Rahu is either conjunct with another planet, and that modifies the results of the yoga. Jupiter might be conjunct with another planet. Of course, Jupiter might also be retrograde. So for example, in your chart you have this yoga, but you've got a Jupiter that is a retrograde position. So what does that mean? Well, perhaps the yoga will not manifest until later in life, or there will be delays in getting the positive effects of the yoga. Or the other manifestation with the Jupiter retrograde you could see is that you have to try again and again to get the result. Often with retrograde planets, what I notice is that you have to make more effort. You have to push a bit harder, and you have to be prepared to try more than once to get the result that you want. So it's very important to see the condition of both planets in order to determine, well, whether or not this yoga will give you, strong results. So now this is a general principle for looking at all yogas in the chart. If you, for example, have this yoga and you notice Rahu is conjunct Saturn, or Rahu is conjunct Mars, which are two malefics in your chart, well, then of course, again, the results will get modified. You may not get the result that you want, or perhaps you would get the result, but it's not. It doesn't bring you happiness. It doesn't bring you joy, or perhaps you're not getting the dasha of the planet that would give you the results until you're 80 years old, and by then perhaps you don't much care for some of the prosperity that it would otherwise bestow upon you. So you have to look at all of those conditions in order to determine when and how it will manifest in your chart. So I hope that you found that helpful. Please take a moment to subscribe below, and feel free to make any comments. I appreciate that. Thank you.